All right, so we're here with a tutorial of Scratch and of building a program. So the objective of this tutorial is that by the end, you will be able to create a computer program in Scratch that uses the three key structures of computer science. That's sequencing, selection, and iteration. In order to create this program, you will need to understand the following tools and when and how to use them. Input, variables, booleans, comparison operators, loops, modulo, and functions. Finally, you will learn to recognize and use the following computational thinking strategies in order to help you complete this program: decomposition, algorithm design, abstraction, and pattern recognition. So this sounds like a lot of information right here, but we're going to go through this whole program together, and we'll talk about all of these things as we go. So that's the objective for this tutorial, and here is the challenge. Here's the problem, or the program that we're going to be creating, right? Or the problem that we're solving. So we need to create a program that asks a user to enter a word. The program will then process that word to determine how many vowels and how many consonants are present. Next, your program will print out or display how many vowels and consonants are in the word, and the program will display the word without vowels and without consonants. Finally, the program will display how many letters there are in the word and if the number of letters in the word is odd or even. So there's a lot of things here. So the very first thing we're actually going to do is we're going to use one of our computational thinking strategies. We're going to use decomposition to try to break down this problem and sort of come up with a game plan. So let's first start by breaking down this problem and seeing if we can come up with a game plan to write our program. So here's what I actually like to do. I like to sort of draw this stuff out. You could do this really any way you want to. You could use a piece of paper and a pencil. You could use a Google Doc. You could really do anything that you want. I personally just like to draw things out. So the first thing we're gonna do, so I'm gonna call this my letter program. So I'm gonna call this my letter program. And the first thing it's gonna do, it's gonna take some sort of input, which is gonna be a word. So our program is gonna take in a word. This is our user input. So input, again, is just something that somebody else types into our program. So we've got our word. The first thing, according to my instructions, so if I just look at those instructions again, the first thing it says to do is enter a word, and it's going to determine how many vowels and how many consonants there are. So it's basically going to branch off here. So it's going to take the word, it's going to find how many vowels, how many consonants, and this will be a number. I'll just use the number symbol there. And again, you can break this down any way you want to. I just like to do this first so that it makes more sense to me. So we take in an input, we get a word. Our program is going to determine the number of vowels and the number of consonants. It's then going to somehow just display the vowels only. Display vowels only. It's also going to display consonants only. Consonants only. And I'll just put display there so I remember. Display consonants only, display vowels only. And then it's going to sort of come back together, and it's going to just say the number of letters, and whether it's even or odd. And so we know that we're going to have to do quite a bit here. Like this is a pretty basic diagram, but I think we're probably going to have to do quite a few things. But at least I sort of have a starting point. And I think probably what I'll do, and if I actually just look back at my computational thinking strategies, we have this one here called pattern recognition. I'm starting to notice right here, I'm guessing that these two things here are going to be very similar, right? Because one, we're just looking for vowels, one, we're looking for consonants, which we could also say are not vowels. That's the same as consonants, really. So these two things are sort of opposites. So I think I can probably save some time right here. If I just do one of these, the other one should be pretty easy. So yeah, I think we'll start first with getting some user input. All right, so what you should be doing this whole time as well, just follow along with what I'm doing. So if you get to a point where you need to pause the video or rewind the video, go ahead and do that. And just take as much time as you need and then hit play again. And also if you need to watch it a couple times, watch it a couple times. Whatever you need to do to get this program to work. Okay, so very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Scratch. So fastest way to go to Scratch, I'm just going to Google it. It's normally the very first link that comes up here. Click on Scratch. If you have not created an account in Scratch yet, it is very easy to do. You go to Join Scratch, you create a username, create a password, and type your password again to confirm it. It's going to ask you a couple questions. And then once your account is set up, it's going to send you an email. Make sure you verify your email, otherwise you won't be able to share your projects. That's very important if you want to turn those in. So I have an account, so I'm going to sign in. Okay, so I'm signed in. I'm going to go up to the top left and click on Create. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename my file. So this is really important so you know what project you're looking at. So I always like to put my last name first, underscore, and then I just title the program. So I'm going to call this my letter program. Honestly, you can call it whatever makes the most sense to you. But for example, I'm just going to call it letter program because really I'm just trying to find vowels. I'm trying to find consonants. So I'm going to call that the letter program. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to come over to events and I'm going to grab when flag is clicked block. So what this block does, this block initiates our program. So this is almost like the very start of our program. When I click the green flag, the program is going to start to run. Okay, so I've got my starting event. The first thing I want to do is I think I just want to display some text to tell the user what the program actually does. So I'm going to grab a say block from under the looks category, a say block, and I'm going to say, this program will determine the number of vowels and consonants in a word. It will also print out or display, I'll say display, it will also display the word with only consonants or with only vowels and with only consonants. And I'll say that because there's a lot of text there. I'm going to say that for 4 seconds. So let's see what this does real quick. Let me hit the green flag. So it says this program will determine the number of vowels and consonants in a word. So that's pretty short, so I'll change that to 6. It will also display the word with only vowels and with only consonants. And I might say, lastly, it will tell you how many letters are in your word. Tell you how many letters are in your word, and if the number is odd or even. Now, honestly, that is a lot of text to have in there. And you could do a whole number of things here. You could write this a lot differently. I'm just going to do that. But that is a lot of text. I might change that to 8 seconds. So essentially all I'm doing is I am just telling the user what the program actually does. Okay, so if I go back to my plan, I know that I want to ask the user for some sort of input. In order to do that, I'm going to go down to the sensing category on the left, and I'm going to grab an ask block. And what the ask block is it is taking an input and it's prompting the user to type something in. So I want to ask the user to enter a word. So please enter a word. Like that. And if I hit the green flag, I also like to test my program as I'm going, just to make sure that there's no errors, because if I've typed in if I put a lot of programming into my project so far, it's very hard to tell where I'm making a mistake. So I like to test it quite a bit as we're going. So it says, please enter a word. I'm just going to move my sprite to about there. So if I type something in, I'll just type in test. Okay, so nothing happens because I haven't told the program to do anything else yet. So here's how I tell the program what to do with the user's input. So what I'm going to do is grab this little answer bubble. Again, it's right under the ask block in the sensing category. And what I want to do is I want to save whatever answer or whatever input the user enters. So this is where I need to create a variable. And what a variable does is it just stores information in the computer's memory so that I can use it later on in my program. So I'm going to create a variable, and it's very important that you label your variables variables exactly what they are. So for example, I'm going to say user, let's say user word, because we're asking the user to enter a word. I call it user word. Also, you'll notice I have this sort of weird format for the way that I write variables. I stick the words together. The first word is lowercase, and then the second word starts with an uppercase. And this is just a common way to create variables. So that's how I'm going to do it. You could actually do it pretty much any way that you want to. Just a couple things to remember. You can't really start off a variable with a number. You also can't have spaces in your variable, and you can't have a symbol to start with. Now, these things will work in Scratch, but in other programming languages, they won't. You'll probably get an error if you try to do that. So just stick with an actual word only. So I'll hit OK. Now I have a variable called user word. And right below that, you'll see a block that says set. I'm going to grab a set block, and I want to change that to user word. So click the drop down, click on user word. And then I'm going to take my answer bubble, drop it into that little space there. So as you can see, I'm starting to now create a sequence in my program. And what I mean by sequence is that things are in a specific order so that the program runs correctly. This is really, really important because an algorithm is just a list of steps. And when I say algorithm, just sort of another word for list of steps, or even a program. A program can be thought of as an algorithm, a list of steps that does some sort of task. And it's very important that this algorithm or list of steps is in order, right? So if you think about brushing your teeth, there's a very specific order to brushing your teeth. You can't really put those things out of order. It's probably not going to work, right? You can't brush your teeth without first putting toothpaste on your toothbrush. So the sequence is very important. And if you remember, that is one of our key structures of computer science, sequencing. Okay, so far, so good. We've got this little opening. You know what? I'm going to change that because I don't like there being so much text in there. I'm just going to say, welcome. This is the letter program. Very simple. Obviously doesn't give a whole lot of information to the user, but just for the sake of this tutorial, I'll keep it short. Then we ask, please enter a word, and the program will wait until the user enters a word. Then we're going to set whatever the user enters, which is this answer bubble. We're going to set it to our variable user word. So let's test this. I'm going to click the green flag. Welcome, this is the letter program. Please enter a word. I'll type in test, and you'll notice that the user word variable gets updated with the word test. Okay, so far, so good. Now let me look back at my program. So I need to do something with the word that the user types in. I know I need to look for vowels and I need to look for consonants. So what I'm going to do, just thinking about this, I know that vowels, there's a lot less vowels than there are consonants, obviously. So I think I'm going to start with this one here. Let's see if we can figure out how we can pull out different letters within a word to see if they are vowels. Okay, so the very first thing I need to do, I need to see if a specific letter in the word is a vowel. So I'm going to do that by going over to my operators. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first grab this little operator right here. It is called letter 1 of apple. So basically, if this said letter 1 of apple, the number 1 would represent just the A here. But because I have a user word, what I want to actually do is come over to variables, grab user word, and drop it right there. So right here, I've got letter 1 of the user word, which at the moment, if you remember, is test. Okay, so I've got letter 1 of user word. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to head over to control, and I'm going to look for some if, then, else statements. Now, these blocks are extremely important when we're writing a program because they allow us to create the other key structure, or one of the other key structures of computer science, and that is selection. It essentially allows us to branch off our program and do different things. For example, I want to say if a letter in the user word is a vowel, then do something. If it's not, do something else. So you'll notice that this has sort of a diamond shape here. Obviously that is not going to fit in there. This is more of a bubble or an oval. So I'm going to go back to operators. And here's what I want to do. I'm going to grab an equal operator. So real quick, these are called comparison comparison operators. And again, if you look back at our objective, we talked about input so far, we talked about variables. We've got these comparison operators, and all they are, things like equals, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to. They're ways to compare things. So what I want to do is I want to compare letter 1 of user word, and I want to see if that is equal to an A, because A is a variable. Or sorry, A is a vowel. So I can drop that in there. And as of right now, so if I were to snap that back up there, as of right now, I am checking to see if the first letter of the word that the user types in is an A. However, there are more vowels. We've got A, E, I, O, U, sometimes Y. How could I check to see if it's one of those? Right? Because one letter can't be more than one thing. It's got to be just one letter. So here is where a Boolean comes in. And in Scratch, we have 3 key Booleans. We have an OR Boolean, we have an AND Boolean, and we have a NOT Boolean. For this one, I'm actually going to use the OR Boolean. And the reason I'm using an OR Boolean is because a letter, one of the letters of the user word, it cannot be all of the vowels all together.